Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. So in this specific video, I'll be sharing with you how to paint the feathers. So there's so many ways to paint feathers, right? But my favorite techniques are wet on wet and lifting. And to create that softness, you want to paint it wet on wet. And so another reason why I paint this way is because I'm just not a fan, not somebody that would want to paint every single feather, every single hair. So that's why wet on wet is perfect. It's a forgiving technique. It's just a matter of preserving the areas to stay light whenever needed. So whatever you have highlights, right? And then to gradually add the darks. So adding the darks, and you want to do all this wet on wet. Then comes down to lifting colors. So to either bring back the highlights or you want to create a soft look of the hair, some individual highlighted hair. A full class is available on Patreon, so that's where I add the background and I paint all the details, so the eyes, the beak, and the toes, and so on. So I hope to see you there. The link is below this video, and please don't forget to follow me here, subscribe to my channel, and like this video. Thank you so much. So here I go, just wetting. Now wetting process is very important, and it's not something that I do for like a minute and I'm done. Now this is actually one of the very important steps. So you want to spend some time wetting the paper, and I suggest for something like this, like 4 or 5 minutes. So you're just sitting on it and basically wetting the paper. I am going to grab my long quill size 4. And the first thing I'm gonna do is grab enough water, because I need water in my brush. This is gonna be more like, I'd say like a water to milk like ratio. And then there's quinacridone red, some of the yellow, and then some blue here too. So something like this. Feel it out on the palette first, and then you go towards your painting, right? And then this is just the area, like kind of orange area that I can see here. And this actually quickly becomes here like a blue-gray, but I'm still here. So I'm just gonna add these colors a little more, maybe more concentrated paint, like a milk-like ratio, which is harder to grab now because everything is like kind of flowing here, but I have a little more red. I'm just gonna add it right there and pull through a little bit. Now clean my brush. I want to grab the same thing in a way. And if you want to have more control, make sure your brush is not soaking wet, basically. And then grab these yellows, red and blue. So it's more like a blue-gray. There you go. And then I'm gonna go for this area, which is very light, and I want a little more blue. So more of that cobalt blue. I so far only grabbed cobalt blue. And then, so this is the most yellowish part without painting the individual feathers yet. So this is my first trial. Normally I do like the test piece first, but oops, I went too, you know what? I'm not even gonna paint this yet. But I guess I got too excited. Okay, I'm gonna use my wet brush just to go through it so I don't have a hard edge. And just to shade it maybe from the top a little bit. We are going to grab red anyway, but for now, let's just add a little bit of these yellows. A little more, again, cream top, and that's because I want to have a lot of control and I don't want the paint to spread too much. Just whatever you feel like there's yellow, and actually I do feel a little more yellow here. Like there is a little more of that yellow. How far does this yellow go? I'd say like almost all the way. So I'm gonna grab this and tiny bit of blue, drier blue, just so I have a little like a different shade, like a shadow too. And then choosing a couple areas where I want to apply it, but I need more of it on my brush. And if I have to squeeze fresh paint, then I will. I'm just trying to see if I can do it with what I have already. Now these areas here, like I need to work more on it. So I guess I'm not gonna add too much of the red, but at least over here to those spots right there. So here I think I'm okay. Of course this is all drawing, but as long as I have this part here painted, I'm good. I'm gonna grab more of this cobalt blue and start applying it here. This is such a pretty sheet that I see in the reference. I wonder if I should mix it maybe with the ultramarine to make it more like it, but I think I'm okay for now. So this is, these are the bluish feathers on the left side, wet on wet still. And this is, I start with a heavy cream to cream top like ratio between water and paint. It's just that the paint spreads because the paper is wet, which is a good thing because I can still paint and I can apply colors. So then we have these whitish, right? Whitish feathers. I don't want to cover those. What I want actually is a little bit of this cobalt turquoise blue. So I want to grab that. This is cobalt turquoise blue. I'm going to go for these feathers. I need to use between the ratio like between water and paint that feels more like between water and paint. So it's milk or water even. If I don't do it with the milk to water, this will dry out too fast. I just need to add more water right now to the paper so I can keep this wet longer. And that's just one way to do it. I wouldn't do it if the paper felt damp. That would not work. So these are the two colors, which is cobalt blue and cobalt turquoise, cobalt turquoise light. Okay, so I have this part now painted. Now what I want to do is grab this cobalt blue with some of this cobalt turquoise and a little bit of quin red. That was too much quin red. So I'm going to grab it again, there you go. And I have the two colors, well, three. And then I'm going to go over some of these parts, a little more of the red, and go actually here closer. And you're kind of recreating the feathers that you see, so you're going like in the shape of a feather. And I don't want to cover my tree here, and I went too far. But here I can get closer. So when you're getting closer towards these claws, be very careful so you don't go over. Because I'd say if the claws are, yeah, they were darker, then I wouldn't worry about it. But they're actually, there's a lot of highlights over them. So this is, we need more contrast. So I'm going to grab some more of this quin red, phthalo blue, cobalt blue, and I'm going to go back here. So these are these darker feathers closer to the face, right? But I need more color here, so that's why. And then I quickly grab some of this Van Dyke brown actually. So to create a shade of brown, you can simply just mix red with the green. But it's much easier here in this case to grab some Van Dyke brown. And it's a nice shade anyway. And then I'm gonna go back here, try to recreate some of these feathers. I went over again my stick. I need to save it. I'm just gonna make it thinner, I guess. Or I can still make it thicker from the other side, basically. So now what I'm gonna do is grab some of this cobalt blue here. Maybe some quin red, cobalt turquoise, and come back here. But don't add it everywhere. Try not to lose those highlights because highlights are very important. And let's not forget, we're still gonna lift the colors. So the most important is that you're paying attention to like where you already like have contrast so you don't lose the light. And we're gonna use a damp brush in a second, which actually I have to do this fairly quickly before this dries out. So I can soften everything. I'm gonna go over it right here. I don't want to lose the stick. I keep telling myself, but I keep going over it too. So I'm trying to also like, okay, this is where the feathers are. So I'm kind of going to accent some of them. So I'm just adding a little more color there. And I need to stop for a second here in these areas, just so I can come back here because it's a little late for the yellow part. So what I need is my round 8 golden one. I want some of these darks. Okay, what am I gonna do is grab some Van Dyke brown here. This is indigo. I need more water. Quinacridone red. These are the blues. I'm thinking what color do I see there? I want some of this cobalt blue, basically quin red. The darks are gonna be the blues mixed with some of this Van Dyke brown, but I need more of that, maybe some burnt sienna too. And find those areas. So just like you see in the reference, there's a lot of those areas that are darker. And for example, like right here. So what is the ratio? It's cream top, and I think you can tell because this was too dry. But when you are if you touch the area that's not dry yet, it just feels kind of almost, it's like feels damp, then you have that softness. There you go, over here. So these are the darkest feathers, and it is important to add these while the paper is still wet. If you didn't make it, that's okay. Just wait to re-wet it, and then you will add the colors. So this is how you can shape the feathers, basically like a U shape, and you're finding feathers to accent them. So this is a combination of all the blues with the Van Dyke brown and quin red, and cream top-like ratio between water and paint. This is an important spot right here. You need way more of that brown, and it's still wet, luckily. But well, it's just the thing that if you want to later re-wet it or not, right? It's just a matter of that. So right there, more of it, and then I have a chance to still add shadows underneath some of these feathers, which is great because this is wet on dry, adding these shadows. Now ideally I would like that combination of all this right here, but this is kind of dry. Well, I'll try. Feels damp because I also need these shadows here. So somewhere there, and then maybe here, very gently touching. And then we can also separate these feathers. So everything is practice. I know this is not the easiest painting on the planet. I know that. It takes practice, and I remember when I was painting my first parrots this way, and there's the blue one actually is on Patreon. And it takes time to get all of this like working, because you have to think about adding the more darks for contrast and stuff like that, and the paper might be already dry. So I don't want you to get frustrated over this. It's just know that everything is practice, because the longer you paint, the faster you get at it, because you might feel like, well, I don't have that much time to apply all these colors, and that's okay. First of all, you can help yourself by wetting the back of the paper too, if you want to. That's one way to do it. And number two, you don't have to tackle all of it at once. You can break it down, just like we are actually breaking it down, because we're going to paint this side later. And I do have to add like more colors here. Overall, like this, there's not enough like going on here, like contrast, like I still need more. So a little more here. So this is all the same, what I have on my brush, like I haven't grabbed any new colors. And what will help too, like please remember that once you add you paint the eye and then the beak, everything kind of starts to make sense. Now I really have to hurry up if I want to lift the colors, and lifting is like important here, and I already missed out on timing, unfortunately. So I have to quickly do this. This is my Songbird rigger brush. So this brush is specifically for lifting, but you can use, of course, other rigger brushes if you want to. And I'm just using a damp brush. And I'm thinking, what are the most important areas where I want to lift? Because I won't be able to lift everywhere. I just ran out of that time. Like, I don't have enough time to lift everywhere. So I'm going to pick and choose the most important areas where I want to lift. And unfortunately, this is too dry here. I can try to grab a little paint, like a heavy cream to cream top, or like a cream top. See if I can go through. It's a little late. Yeah, this is like too dry. Just a little. I was able to add a little bit. Because a lot of times, like before the paper dries all the way, I will use also a rigger brush and cream top like ratio to go over like some of the areas to add like darker lines as well. I did that mostly with the round 8 golden one, but a lot of times if time permits, I still use the rigger brush. Like as I am lifting, I'm also adding this cream top like ratio of paint towards like some other areas to create more contrast. So I can't really lift much more. So I'm just gonna go with that. So we do want to divide some of the feathers and we don't have to paint all of them. Like for example, let's paint this bottom part. So what we do is wet just the bottom part, including the shadow. Let's say like up to here. And then this part on the inside. Gotta make sure this is where I want. Okay, good. And then I'm gonna grab a smaller brush for this, my round 8 golden one. I'm gonna first grab the cobalt blue, and this is gonna be more like a heavy cream-like ratio. And I have too much paint and water, so I had to adjust it quickly. But I'm gonna add it the closest I can get towards these feathers. So this is where I wetted it, and then I didn't wet the other parts, right? And then just the darkest parts, that's where I'm applying the color. This is my cobalt blue mostly. So I'm separating the feathers this way. I had a little too much water, so I'm grabbing it. I'm just picking it up. Go. So instead of like, again, painting every single feather individually, I'm combining them. And then I'm grabbing this quinacridone red, Van Dyke brown quinacridone red, Van Dyke brown indigo. And I'm gonna go towards the darkest parts that I can see. I want this to be more shadowed. And then this, so cream top, it has to be cream top like ratio between water and paint. Otherwise everything will just spread too much. It's a matter of also like how we wet the paper, and at first I wetted it too much. So things were just spreading a little too much. But I scooped out some of that and now I have more control. And this kind of looks unnatural, so just not so nice. So now I have to do this. There you go. So I'm gonna clean my brush. I can't touch like anything close to it. So instead I'm gonna move on somewhere else. I feel like this should be connected a little bit. So I'm gonna use the damp brush. Just like in the reference. Damp brush just to soften this. And I'm thinking, okay, there's the darkest feathers there, right? So I wanna grab, let's see, more like a milk-like ratio. So here, maybe here. I'm gonna clean the brush and then use a damp brush. Here you go, to soften it. So I'm just creating shadows. Basically, shadows are needed to create that dimension. So you don't want to do it with every feather. Just find a couple feathers where you want to make them a little darker underneath, so the shadows. So I chose this one. Although I don't like that one, but I'll work on it later. I just need a little more darks. So Van Dyke brown, some indigo, cobalt blue, There you go. Because I do have quite a bit of these darker ones here. And you know, they have like these whiter parts. I would have had to lift earlier, but I didn't. So I'm just gonna go with it. There you go. And then softening it with my clean brush. So going underneath what the stroke I just created. There you go. So now, like you can see, like there's just more dimension in a way, right? And that's what we want to do. Not everywhere, we're just picking areas. I'm gonna see what it looks like. I'm grabbing some of this cobalt turquoise blue and some of it Fontaine brown, and I'm gonna come to this one here because it's closer, and this one, and then clean brush. Let's see if I like this. I don't think I need it. Maybe just on this side since it's like kind of together there. What I want is this cobalt blue with red and go here. And then clean brush, barely any water. I wiped on a towel. Just added some of that shade. So that looks really pretty, that cobalt blue with red together. So thank you so much for your time. I know this was a lot going on, but once you break things down into like elements and layers, everything I think becomes much easier to digest, and it's just easier just to kind of just go with it. Okay, like we just painted the leaf now. Earlier we did the background. So once you break things down into sections, it's much easier to go with it with that painting. So thank you so much again, and please let me know if you have any questions.